My son stopped me at the hospital door after I'd driven 12 hours straight from Phoenix and said the words that would cost them everything. Dad, Michelle says she wants just immediate family for the birth. You understand, right? 4 days later, when Denver General Hospital called asking how I'd like to pay the $8,500 delivery bill with my forged signature, I smiled for the first time since my grandson was born. You see, I'm Timothy Patterson, 58 years old, and I spent 30 years as a financial crimes detective with Phoenix PD. Some people pick the wrong family to mess with. Let me back up and explain how we got to this moment of sweet justice. 3 weeks earlier, my daughter-in-law Michelle had called me, practically glowing through the phone. Tim, the baby's due any day now, and we'd love for you to be there when he arrives. You're going to be such an amazing grandfather. I should have known something was off when she started calling me Tim instead of Mr. Patterson. After 3 years of marriage to my son Bradley, she'd never been that warm. But the excitement of becoming a grandfather for the first time clouded my judgment. At 58, I'd been dreaming of this moment since Brad announced the pregnancy 8 months ago. I live in Phoenix. They live in Denver. 12 hours of desert highways and mountain passes. I packed my best clothes, bought gifts for the baby, and even splurged on a nice hotel near the hospital. This was going to be one of the most important weeks of my life. The drive itself was brutal. My back ached from sitting so long, but every mile brought me closer to meeting my grandson. I'd stopped only for gas and coffee, calling Brad twice to check if there was any news. Both times, Michelle answered his phone, sweet as pie, telling me to drive safely and that they couldn't wait to see me. When I finally pulled into the hospital parking garage at 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning, exhausted but excited, I felt like I'd accomplished something important. The maternity ward receptionist told me Michelle was in labor, room 314. I practically floated down the hallway, my heart pounding with anticipation. That's when I found Brad pacing outside the delivery room, looking more stressed than excited. The moment he saw me, his face changed. Not relief, not joy, something closer to panic. Dad, what are you doing here? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. What do you mean? Michelle invited me. She said, you wanted me here for the birth. Brad's eyes darted toward the delivery room door, then back to me. He looked like a man caught between two impossible choices. She changed her mind about having family here. She wants it to be just us. But I drove 12 hours, Brad. I'm here now. I'm not asking to be in the delivery room just to be nearby when my grandson arrives. I know Dad, but Michelle's really adamant about this. You know how emotional she gets. The doctor said stress could complicate the delivery. Something in his voice told me this wasn't Michelle's sudden change of heart. This felt planned, orchestrated, but I was too tired and too shocked to fight in a hospital corridor. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go to my hotel and wait for your call. Brad looked relieved, which only confirmed my suspicion that I was being deliberately pushed out. Thanks, Dad. I'll call you as soon as the baby's born. I spent the next 8 hours in my hotel room checking my phone every 10 minutes. When Brad finally called at 10 a.m. Wednesday morning, his voice was exhausted but happy. Dad, he's here. Nathan Bradley Patterson, 7 pounds 2 ounces. He's perfect. Congratulations, son. When can I meet him? Another pause. Michelle's really tired, Dad. The delivery was rough. Maybe give us a day or two to settle in. I felt like I was begging for scraps from my own family. Brad, I'm his grandfather. I drove 12 hours to be here. I know, and we appreciate that. But Michelle needs to recover, you understand, right? No, I didn't understand. But I agreed because what choice did I have? I spent 2 more days in that hotel room ordering room service and watching terrible daytime television while my son and his wife bonded with my grandson in a hospital 3 miles away. Friday morning came and went with no call. I finally drove to the hospital myself, determined to at least see my grandson through the nursery window. That's when I discovered they'd already been discharged. I called Brad immediately. You took the baby home without even telling me? Dad, Michelle wanted to get home to her own space. She's been really anxious about germs and visitors. I'm not a visitor, Brad. I'm your father. I'm Nathan's grandfather. I know that. Look, maybe next month when things settle down, next month. I'd driven 12 hours to see my grandson next month. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I hung up, packed my bags, and drove back to Phoenix. If they wanted to exclude me from Nathan's birth, fine. But they were about to learn that actions have consequences. The drive back was different. Instead of excitement, I felt something cold settling in my chest. In 30 years of police work, I developed instincts about people. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. Not just hurtful wrong, like I was missing something important. I pulled into my Phoenix driveway Saturday evening, exhausted and frustrated. My neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, waved from her garden. How's the new grandbaby, Tim? Beautiful, I said, forcing a smile. Just beautiful. But as I walked into my empty house, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Denver General Hospital. Is this Timothy Patterson? Yes, ma'am. We have some paperwork issues regarding the birth of Nathan Bradley Patterson. The insurance claim was denied, and we need to discuss payment arrangements for the delivery bill. My heart started pounding, but not with anxiety, with something much more satisfying. I'm sorry, but I think there's been some confusion. I'm not responsible for that bill. Our records show you as the financial guarantor for Michelle Patterson's delivery. And that's when I realized exactly what my dear daughter-in-law had done while I was driving across 2 states to be there for my grandson's birth. Ma'am, according to our records, you signed financial responsibility forms for Mrs. Michelle Patterson's delivery. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair, my mind racing. When exactly was this form signed? Let me check. It shows here that the forms were submitted electronically on November 15th at 11:47 p.m., November 15th. The night I was driving through the middle of nowhere, Utah, probably around the time I stopped for gas near Salt Lake City. I'd been on the road for 8 hours, exhausted and focused on getting to Denver safely. And how exactly were these forms submitted? Electronically through our patient portal. The signature appears to be yours, Mr. Patterson. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. While I was white-knuckling it through a snowstorm on I-70, desperate to reach Denver before my grandson was born, Michelle was forging my signature on financial documents. I need to see these forms. Can you email them to me? Certainly. What email address should I use? 20 minutes later, I was staring at documents that made my blood boil. Not only had Michelle forged my signature, but she'd also somehow obtained my social security number, address, and financial information. The forms clearly stated that as the paternal grandfather, I had requested to be financially responsible for the delivery as a gift to the new parents. But the most infuriating part was the timing. These forms were submitted while Michelle was sweet-talking me on the phone about being there for the birth, knowing full well that she planned to stick me with the bill while excluding me from actually seeing my grandson. Now here's where my 30 years as a financial crimes detective kicked in. I didn't get angry. I got methodical. First, I pulled out my old case files and found my contact list from the department. Detective Stephen Williams in Denver PD's fraud division had worked with me on a multi-state identity theft ring 3 years ago. Good cop, thorough investigator. I gave him a call. Steve, it's Tim Patterson from Phoenix PD. I need a favor, and it's personal. Tim, how's retirement treating you? What can I do for you? Someone's committed identity theft against me, and I think there's more to it than just one incident. Can you run a background check on someone for me? Of course. What's the name? Michelle Patterson, maiden name unknown, lives in Denver, married to my son Bradley. Born around 1991, give or take. I'll run it through our databases and see what comes up. You thinking organized fraud? My gut says yes. The timing, the sophistication, it feels professional. While I waited for Steve's callback, I started documenting everything. Screenshots of Michelle's texts inviting me to Denver, call logs showing when she contacted me. Photos I'd taken during my drive with GPS timestamps proving where I was when the forms were supposedly signed. Even my hotel receipts and gas station purchases along the route. Then I called my old partner from financial crimes, Detective Patricia Rodriguez, who'd transferred to the FBI's white-collar crime division 2 years ago. Pat, I need some advice, hypothetically. If someone forged financial documents across state lines, what kind of charges are we looking at? Hypothetically, wire fraud, identity theft, potentially RECO if it's part of a larger scheme. Why, Tim? Someone ripping off retirees. Someone ripped off this retiree, and I think my daughter-in-law isn't who she claims to be. Email me everything you have. I'll take a look. Next, I set up my old surveillance equipment in my home office, hidden digital recorders, backup hard drives, a dedicated phone line for recording conversations. If Michelle wanted to play games with a retired detective, she was going to get the full treatment. My phone buzzed with a text from Brad. Dad, hope you made it home safely. Michelle's doing great and Nathan is such a good baby. We'll send pictures soon. Pictures. After excluding me from his birth and forging financial documents in my name, they thought pictures would smooth things over. I typed back carefully. Glad everyone's healthy. Looking forward to meeting Nathan soon. By the way, the hospital called about some paperwork issues. Nothing serious, just need to sort out some billing confusion. I wanted to see how they'd react to that. Would Michelle panic? Try to cover her tracks? In my experience, criminals always made mistakes when they thought they were safe. Tuesday morning brought Steve Williams' call back. Tim, you sitting down? Your daughter-in-law doesn't exist. What do you mean? Michelle Patterson, born 1991, no record in Colorado DMV, no social security history before 2021. Whatever name she was using before she married your son, it wasn't Michelle Patterson. My stomach dropped. What about social security fraud? That's where it gets interesting. The SSN she's using belongs to a Michelle Patterson who died in Idaho in 2019. Car accident. No family. Someone's been very clever about assuming a clean identity. Steve, this is looking like a federal case. Already made some calls. FBI's interested. You got someone there you trust? Pat Rodriguez, white-collar crimes. She's expecting my call? Good, Tim. I'm thinking your daughter-in-law is part of something bigger. We've had 3 cases in the past year involving fraud against law enforcement families. Always the same pattern. Someone marries in, gains access to financial information, then disappears with whatever they can grab. 3 cases: Phoenix, Albuquerque, and Salt Lake City. All cops or firefighters. All had their in-laws or family members defrauded by someone who turned out to have false identities. I felt cold all over. Steve, are you telling me my son was specifically targeted? That's what it's looking like. These people research their marks, Tim. They know cops have steady incomes, good credit, access to databases, and family members who trust them. Your son's a paramedic, right? First responders are prime targets. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my hands. This wasn't just about a forged hospital bill. Someone had infiltrated my family, manipulated my son into marriage, and was systematically stealing from us, and they'd picked the wrong retired detective to mess with. I called the hospital back. This is Timothy Patterson. I just reviewed the financial responsibility forms and I need to report fraud. Fraud, sir? That's right. And I'm a retired police detective. I know exactly what you're looking at here. For the next hour, I provided the hospital's legal department with every detail of Michelle's deception. They were particularly interested in the fact that Michelle had invited me to Denver while simultaneously committing fraud in my name. Mr. Patterson, this is indeed a serious matter. We'll be filing a police report and turning this over to our fraud investigation team. In the meantime, all charges to your name are suspended pending investigation. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. Michelle had played this perfectly, or so she thought. She'd gotten me out of the way during the birth, had her private family moment, and planned to stick me with an $8,500 bill as a final insult. What she didn't know was that I'd spent 30 years investigating people exactly like her, and now I was going to use every trick I'd learned. My doorbell rang that afternoon. Through the peephole, I could see a woman in her 30s holding a manila envelope. Timothy Patterson? Yes. I'm Agent Patricia Rodriguez, investigator with Denver General Hospital's Fraud Prevention Department. I have some documents for you to review. She handed me the envelope and waited while I opened it. Inside were printed copies of security footage from the night the fraudulent forms were submitted. The screenshots showed Michelle at a computer in the hospital's family lounge, typing on their patient portal system. Mr. Patterson, these images were captured at 11:52 p.m. on November 15th, approximately 5 minutes after the financial responsibility forms were submitted under your name. There was Michelle, clear as day, hunched over a laptop in the hospital's waiting area. The timestamp showed I was still 4 hours away from Denver, somewhere in the Utah mountains with no cell service. What happens now? I asked. The evidence is overwhelming. Hospital fraud is a federal offense when it involves identity theft across state lines. Your daughter-in-law is looking at significant jail time and financial penalties. As Agent Rodriguez drove away, I knew it was time to take this investigation to the next level. I called my FBI contact, Patricia Rodriguez from White Collar Crimes. Pat, it's Tim. I'm ready to discuss that hypothetical case. Send me everything. I'll review it tonight and get back to you tomorrow. That evening, I got a call that changed everything. It was Steve Williams from Denver PD. Tim, we found something big. Remember those 3 cases I mentioned? We've been working with the FBI and they think your daughter-in-law is part of a 6-person criminal organization. 6 people. They call themselves family infiltrators. They research law enforcement families, have one of their female operatives seduce the target, then systematically steal from everyone connected. Your son wasn't randomly chosen, Tim. He was hunted. Jesus Christ. Gets worse. The ringleader is a guy named Anthony Rivera. He recruits women with criminal backgrounds, trains them in identity theft, and sends them out to marry first responders. They've hit cops in Phoenix, Albuquerque, Salt Lake City, and now Denver. What's their total take? Conservative estimate, $107,000 over the past 2 years. But here's the thing. We think they're planning something bigger with your family. Like what? Life insurance fraud. We found applications for substantial policies on Michelle and your grandson. If something were to happen to them, I felt sick. They're planning to fake their deaths or make them real. Tim, I need you to be very careful here. These people have killed before. After Steve's call, I knew I had to act fast but smart. I couldn't just wait for the FBI to build their case. My family was in immediate danger, so I decided to set a trap. The next morning I called Brad. Son, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come over this weekend? Bring Michelle and Nathan, Dad. I don't think Michelle's ready for visitors yet. Tell her I'm not angry about the hospital thing. I understand she was stressed. In fact, I've got some good news to share. Remember my old partner Jack Morrison? He passed away last month and left me a substantial inheritance. $75,000. I'm thinking about setting up a trust fund for Nathan. I could hear Brad covering the phone, talking to Michelle in hushed tones. When he came back on the line, his voice was different, more excited. You know what, Dad? Michelle says she's feeling better. We could drive down Saturday morning. Perfect. Tell Michelle I'm looking forward to meeting my grandson properly. While I waited for Saturday, I prepared my trap. I set up hidden cameras in my living room and kitchen, positioned to capture both audio and video. I programmed my phone to automatically back up all recordings to a secure cloud server. I even borrowed some surveillance equipment from my old partner who ran a private investigation firm. Most importantly, I prepared fake documents showing the inheritance from Jack Morrison. Bank statements, legal papers, even a will, all fabricated but professional looking enough to fool someone who wasn't a cop. I also reached out to my network. 3 retired detectives agreed to be on standby nearby in case things went wrong. Pat Rodriguez from the FBI positioned agents 2 blocks away. Steve Williams arranged for Denver PD to monitor Brad's apartment in case Michelle tried to run. Saturday morning arrived with Arizona sunshine and cool November air. I made coffee, checked my recording equipment one more time, and waited. At 10:30 a.m., I heard car doors slamming in my driveway. Through my window, I watched Brad get out of their Honda Accord, then Michelle stepped out holding a baby carrier. My first glimpse of Nathan took my breath away. Even from a distance, I could see he looked just like Brad had as a baby. I opened the door before they could knock. Come in. Come in. Let me see my grandson. For the next hour, I played the role of excited grandfather. I held Nathan, took pictures, and made all the appropriate noises about how beautiful he was. And he truly was beautiful, innocent. Perfect, completely unaware that his mother was a professional criminal. Michelle seemed nervous, but tried to hide it. She kept glancing around my house, probably noting the security system, the good furniture, the family photos showing a comfortable retirement. Brad mentioned something about an inheritance. There it was. The hook was in the water, and she'd taken the bait immediately.
Oh yes, quite a windfall actually.
My old partner Jack left me $75,000. I'm thinking about investing it in Nathan's future. Michelle's eyes lit up. That's so generous of you. What kind of investment were you thinking? Well, I was hoping to discuss that with you and Brad. You're the boys' parents after all. Maybe we could set up some kind of trust fund, or maybe help with a larger expense you might be planning. I watched her carefully. This was the moment of truth. Would she try to con me or play it safe? She didn't disappoint, actually, Tim. Brad and I have been talking about buying a house. Something with a yard for Nathan to play in when he gets older. But the down payment requirements these days are just impossible. How much are we talking about? She glanced at Brad, who was playing with Nathan and not really paying attention to our conversation. Well, we found this perfect place in a great neighborhood. It's $425,000, so we'd need about $50,000 for the down payment. $50,000, I repeated, making sure my hidden cameras caught every word. That's a significant chunk of the inheritance. Oh, we wouldn't expect you to pay for all of it? Maybe you could help with part of it? Even $20,000 or $30,000 would make such a difference. I pretended to consider this. You know, Michelle, that sounds like a wonderful investment in Nathan's future. Tell you what, why don't you send me the details about this house? The address, the realtor's information, maybe some photos? I'd love to see where my grandson might grow up. Of course, I can email you everything tonight. Perfect. And Michelle, I'll need some financial information from you and Brad. Bank statements, credit reports, that sort of thing. The trust fund lawyers will need to verify everything for tax purposes. I watched her face carefully for just a moment. I saw a flicker of something, panic, but she recovered quickly. Absolutely. We can get you whatever you need. After they left that afternoon, I immediately called Pat Rodriguez at the FBI. The trap worked. She took the bait, and it's all on video. Excellent. We've been monitoring her communications. She's already texted someone about your inheritance. We think it's Anthony Rivera, the ringleader. What's the next step? We wait. If our profile is correct, she'll try to steal the entire $75,000 within the next week. When she does, we'll have her on federal wire fraud charges. I didn't have to wait long. Tuesday morning, I got a call from my bank. Mr. Patterson, we're calling to verify a large wire transfer request from your account. Someone claiming to be you called this morning requesting to move $75,000 to an account in Colorado. I made no such request. Can you trace the call? Yes, sir. It came from a Denver number registered to Michelle Patterson. Please flag my account for fraud protection and document everything. I'll be filing a police report this afternoon. That afternoon, my doorbell rang. It was Steve Williams from Denver PD, along with 2 FBI agents. Tim, we've got her. Michelle Patterson, aka Lisa Marie Foster, is under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. What about Brad and Nathan? Your son is safe. We arrested Michelle at a coffee shop 3 blocks from their apartment. She was meeting with Anthony Rivera to plan the wire transfer. We got him too. How much did you recover? $107,000 from their organization, plus we prevented the theft of your fake $75,000. Turns out they've been planning this Denver operation for 8 months. Your son was specifically targeted because of his connection to you. That evening, Brad showed up at my house holding Nathan, looking like his world had collapsed. Dad, I don't understand any of this. They're saying Michelle isn't even her real name. I guided him to my kitchen table and poured 2 cups of coffee. Son Michelle is a professional criminal. Her real name is Lisa Marie Foster, and she's part of an organized crime ring that targets law enforcement families. But we've been married for 3 years. We have a child together. I know, and I'm sorry you're going through this, but Brad, she never loved you. You were a mark chosen specifically because you're a paramedic with a retired police detective for a father. I spent the next 2 hours explaining everything to Brad. The fake identity, the pattern of crimes, the wire fraud attempt, even the life insurance policies we'd discovered. By the end, he was crying. Dad, how could I have been so stupid? You weren't stupid. You fell in love with someone who turned out to be a lie. That's not your fault. What happens to Nathan? Is he even legally mine? We'll figure that out with lawyers. But Brad, you're his father in every way that matters, and we're going to make sure he's safe. The trial took place 6 months later. Michelle, whose real name was indeed Lisa Marie Foster, pled guilty to 14 counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. She received 18 years in federal prison. Anthony Rivera, the ringleader, got 25 years. During the sentencing hearing, Michelle finally dropped her mask completely. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she stood up and looked directly at me. You think you're so smart, old man, but there are others like me out there. You can't protect everyone, maybe not. I replied from the gallery, but I can protect my family, and now 6 other families won't have to go through what we did. The federal investigation ultimately led to the arrest of the entire criminal network. They recovered $107,000 in stolen assets, which was distributed among the 12 victim families across 4 states. Brad and Nathan moved back home with me while Brad rebuilt his life. We established legal paternity, got Nathan's birth certificate corrected, and started the slow process of healing. Some evenings, I sit on my front porch watching Brad play with Nathan in the yard, and I think about how close we came to losing everything. Michelle's plan hadn't just been to steal money, they were planning to fake Nathan's death in a car accident, then disappear with him and the life insurance money. If I hadn't reported that hospital bill, if I hadn't used my detective training to investigate, Nathan would have grown up in a criminal enterprise, probably trained to commit the same crimes against other innocent families. Brad asks me sometimes how I knew to set the trap, how I figured out what Michelle was really planning. 30 years of police work teaches you to recognize predators, I tell him. But more than that, when someone threatens your family, you do whatever it takes to protect them. Nathan's 2 years old now, walking and talking and calling me Grandpa Tim. He'll never remember his mother, and maybe that's for the best. What he will know is that his family fought for him, protected him, and made sure he grew up safe. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is refuse to let them get away with destroying themselves. Michelle learned that lesson in federal prison. But more importantly, Nathan will grow up knowing the difference between people who protect families and people who prey on them. Because sometimes being a grandfather means being willing to fight for what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Trust your intuition when something feels wrong, even if it concerns family, because true love doesn't require you to ignore warning signs or tolerate disrespectful treatment. The skills and experience you've accumulated throughout your career are not just professional qualifications, but also tools to protect those you love most when life becomes dangerous.
Dad's silent.